I know we probably did not do, let me do this first. There won't be any Delta Math due this week, but some next week when we start our new lesson. Alright, so some reminders from when we were doing direct and inverse before break. Direct variation is a set of order pairs with a constant ratio, y divided by x. Inverse is a constant product, x times y or y times x, doesn't matter. The equation form for direct is y equals kx. Inverse is y equals k over x. There are some examples. To check for is this direct or inverse, take your ratio or product, find your k, and if that's the same in all, then you have direct or inverse. Direct variations create a line that goes through the origin. Inverse creates that hyperbola shape. And then this is actually incorrect. If you want to change this, it should say solve for k. And then solve for missing variable. So solve for k and then solve for missing variable. And then the bottom two things kind of talk about what we've already discussed. A graph is a linear graph that goes to the origin. The y-intercept is 0. So even if you don't remember all of this while we go back through the review, you can refer back to this page, not while you're taking the quiz/test, but today and while you're reviewing and practicing. Go on to the next page and find any questions you want to see, do, go over, review. We're not going to do all of them. Any of these we want to see, do, go over, review. How do we do this? Because it's been a while. One. Any others? 5. We'll start with those two. If you have others, we'll do those. So with number 1, we have to see, is this in one of our formats? Either solving for k or the equation itself. Is this in one of our equation formats? It is. Which one? Inverse or direct? Inverse. So there's nothing to do. You just have to know that that is the format for inverse. Check that as inverse. Questions on that one?
What do we do if it's not a solver?
Like if it wasn't inverse?
Yeah. If it wasn't like in that format.
If it wasn't in that format. So like pick one that's not in that format.
Number 6.
So we'll do 5 first and then we'll go to 6. So for number 5, this should be linear because it's in standard form. So when you solve it, it'll get you your y equals mx plus b. Most of these will be neither, because the y-intercept isn't 0. But solve for it just in case. Subtract x on both sides. And divide everything by -3. So we have y equals positive 1/3 x minus 5. So would that be direct, inverse, or neither? Does that look like one of our equations?
No.
No. It kind of does, but the y-intercept is not 0. So this is a neither case.
So the one will have to be 0 for the
Direct.
inverse and direct?
For direct. Well, yes, for both, but yes, for both, in direct. But here, you don't really have a y-intercept anyway. Okay, other questions on 5?
Are you doing the
going back to number 4, does this look like either one of your equations or one of the ways you solve for k?
Is it direct? Is it like,
Why do you think it's direct?
is it like x times y equals negative 18? Like the equation for direct is like y equals k times x.
Right, but this is k. So right now, that's not in that same format.
Is it inverse?
It is inverse, because this is how we find k for inverse, x times y. So without solving anything, you could say that. Or if you're not sure, or maybe you forgot how to find k, you could solve this for y, divide both sides by x. And it would be in the inverse format. So either way, it would be inverse. Right, for 6, right now, this is not in either format to solve for k or the original. So let's solve for y. How would we get rid of 2? Multiply both sides by 2. So we have y equals, I'm going to switch the order, 2x. Is that one of our formats? Yes. Direct. Yes. Questions on that one or other questions on the page?
So we do number 9.
Sure. So at first, this is kind of a guessing game. Do you think it's going to be direct or inverse? Yes.
Inverse.
Okay, so if we think it's inverse, if we were to multiply, so I'm going to rewrite k equals y times x off to the side for inverse. Multiply these. If we get the same thing, it's inverse. If not, it's not inverse. And we can try direct. So multiply 20 and 1.5, what do we get? 2.5 times 12.
30.
4 times 7.5.
30.
And we know 5 times 6 is 30. So because these were all the same, it is inverse. But if we started to see different numbers, we'd have to check to see if it was direct. If those were the same, it would be direct. If not, it's neither.
So what if like the numbers, how do you know that if it's direct?
Let's do 10. So let's say we said 10 was direct. Then we have to divide. So let's divide. 217 divided by 31.
So you divide for direct.
What would we get? 7. 140 divided by 20. What was that? Also 7. 119 divided by 17.
7.
And 84 divided by 12. Also 7. So because these are all the same, that would be direct.
So you have to like multiply and divide, and if they're all the same for the multiplication, it's inverse.
Yes. So you don't have to do both unless you decide, I think these are going to be inverse, but as you're multiplying, they're wrong, then you have to do the other. But if you're spot on the first time around, then you don't have to do both.
And it's neither if none of them match.
Correct.
Like the both, all the numbers are different.
All the numbers are different, yeah. Right, go on to the next page. Questions on that page? Okay. Is 16 direct, inverse, or neither?
Neither.
Neither. Why?
Because it doesn't have the origin.
does not go through the origin, so it is neither. Any others?
17.
17 and 18. What did you say? Not neither. This one is inverse. It makes that hyperbola shape. 18 would be direct inverse from neither. Neither. It's not a line. It's not a hyperbola. It's actually a quadratic. We'll talk about that later, but it is neither. Any others?
20.
Okay. So this is called a mapping. It maps your x and y values together. So this x goes with this y and so on and so forth. So again, this is like the table or the ordered pairs. Do we think this is going to be inverse or direct? Okay, so if we think it's inverse, let's multiply. 3 times 2 is 6 times 4. 24 is not inverse. So let's try direct. Divide. 2 divided by 3 is just 2/3. Leave that as that. 4 divided by 6. Put it in as a fraction, so you're not getting a decimal, but yes, 2/3. 8 divided by 12.
2/3.
Also 2/3. And then 12 divided by 18. Also 2/3. Because this was the same, this is direct. Okay. Go on to the next page. Any questions on 1 through 8?
We do number 8.
Sure. You thought of which one were you going to say?
Number 3.
Right. So for number 3, this is in standard form, so it's going to be linear. Without solving this, which of these is it going to be?
Neither.
Neither. Now you could still solve it. Subtract 8x from both sides. We have negative 2y equals negative 8x plus 2. Divide everything by negative 2. So y equals 4x minus 1. It is linear, but it doesn't go through the origin. The y-intercept is not 0. So that would be neither. For number 8, the mapping, you just have to follow which one goes to which. So I'll highlight those just in case it's hard to see. Do we think this is going to be direct or inverse? Inverse. So let's multiply and see. Okay, so we said inverse. So if we multiply 1 times 20, 20. 10 times 2, 20. 8 times 2.5, and 4 times 5 is 20, so it is inverse. Other questions on the page? Go on to the next. Questions on 9 through 15. others, we'll do some more. Alright, so starting at 13, if the point 2, negative 10 lies on the graph of an inverse variation, which represents the inverse variation equation. So we're dealing with inverse, we don't have to guess. They give us a bunch of equations, so we have to use the x and y that were given, multiply them together to find k. So our k value is negative 20. And then now knowing that our k value is negative 20, which of these is our inverse equation? C. Do you have any questions on that one? For 15, identify two ordered pairs that would form a direct variation. So we have to divide each set and see which ones are the same. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. 9 divided by 4, we're just going to leave that as a fraction. 5 divided by 20. So not 4, but 1/4. 10 divided by 10. 1. 3 divided by 12. Not 4, but 1/4. 18 divided by 2. So of these, which are the same?
5 divided by 20 and 3 divided by 12.
So those would be our direct. Those would form a direct variation. Right. Main thing, make sure you either label which one is x, which one is y, and that you're dividing y divided by x, not the other way around. Do we have any other questions on this page?
Number 12.
Number 12. If y varies directly as x and the constant of the variation is negative 3, which equation represents this relationship? So we know it varies directly, direct inverse, direct variation, and we know our k value, the constant of variation, is negative 3. Which of these would represent a direct variation with a constant of negative 3? Which one did you say? B wouldn't be a negative, but A would. On to the next page. Questions on that page? Which one? There are two. Any others? The bottom one? Okay. Alright, so for the first 21, if y is inversely proportional to x and y equals 7 when x equals 9, find x when y equals 14. So this is one of those cases where we have an x and a y, we need to find k to find the missing value. So inversely proportional, we're dealing with inverse variation. So our x and our y, we're going to multiply those together to find k. And then 9 times 7 would give us 63. Then we're going to use our inverse equation, y equals k over x, and put in our missing value, our missing variable, and the k value we just found. So 14 equals 63 over x.
Where did you get that 14 from?
That was in the problem. Right. Now we have to solve for x. How would we do that? Multiplying 63 wouldn't get x out of the denominator. Multiply x on both sides. then we can divide both sides by 14. And that would give us 400. Do you have any questions on that one before we do the last one? For the bottom 21. The number of calories burned while jogging varies directly with the number of minutes spent jogging. If George burns 150 calories by jogging for 20 minutes, how many calories does he burn, is what I was supposed to say, by jogging for 30 minutes? So what's important here?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Say that again. Varies directly. What else is important?
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
150 calories.
150 calories. And what are we looking for? 20 calories. Right. Remember, when it's worded like this, if it says varies directly, varies inversely, some sort of variation of those words, whatever comes before those words is y. Whatever comes after is x. And then you can match up all the rest of your numbers with your y and your x. So number of calories is y, number of minutes is x, number of minutes is x. How many calories? So we're looking for y. And then we solve this very similar to how we solved the other 21, but with direct stuff instead of inverse. So to find our k value, what would we do with these two if this varies directly? Divide. So k equals y over x, 150 over 20. Seven point five calories per minute would be our k value. And then we could use our equation, y equals kx, to find y when we are given x. So this would be set up, y equals our k value, 7.5 times 30.
So to find the k value, you multiply the x and y.
That's for inverse.
Oh,
For direct, you divide.
also, what do you do? You multiply?
Divide.
Oh.
So 225. If this were a problem for your quiz or test, you would put labels, so calories. If it doesn't have the words varies directly, varies inversely, any of those, you have to remember that the things, if they go up or down together, so like time spent studying and your grade, they go up or down together, that would be direct. But if one goes up and the other goes down, that is inverse. The only example I'm thinking of is the one we did from class, the weight of a person and the ounces of medication. As the weight goes, that might have been direct. I don't remember. But they're opposites if they're inverse. Right? Other questions on this one? Okay, go on to the last page. Any of those you want to see you go over and have questions about? Which one, honey? 25. Okay. So the 23 and 24, one is a direct, one is an inverse, so you will have seen both after we On a ski lift, the distance between chairs is inversely proportional to the number of chairs. At a ski resort, the one lift has 80 chairs spaced 16 meters apart. What is the constant of variation? This is actually not solving everything, but what's important here?
80 chairs. 16 meters apart.
Inversely proportional. What are we looking for?
Distance between chairs.
Constant of variation, which is what?
Okay.
K.
So
So we're just finding K, not everything else. If this is inverse, how do we find K? Multiply.
thousand.
That's it.
So don't do more than what it asks, but make sure you're doing what it asks.
Would you take parts out if we do more?
Yes, we're not following directions. So make sure you're paying attention to the directions. Do we want to see 23 or 24?
Could you play 3?
Let's do 24 instead, since 23 was a direct. So the time required to complete a job varies inversely as the number of people working. It took 4 hours for 7 electricians to wire a building. How long would it have taken 3 electricians to have done the job? What's important here?
7 electricians.
7 electricians,
4
4
hours.
hours. Varies inversely. How long? And something else.
3 electricians.
3 electricians. Right, so varies inversely. So the time is going to be your y, and the number of people is going to be x. So 4 hours would be y, 7 would be x, 3 would be x. So we are looking for which variable? Y. So if this varies inversely, we have to find k by doing what? Multiplying 4 and 7. And then use that k value and our variable slash value in our equation. Y equals k over x. We don't know y, so that stays y. Our k is 28. Our x is 3.
Question. You said you divide, right?
To find what?
To find the because it's inverse, so you divide the thing.
So for inverse to find k, you multiply. And then you're using the equation. And we just put in the missing value.
Wait, so for direct, if you're trying to find k, what do you do?
Divide. Divide 28 by 3. We'll talk about that answer in a second. But what do we get? 9 point what?
9.3.
So there's only one answer with a 9 hours, so it has to be D. But if you took 20 and put it over 60, you would get that decimal. So D is your answer. So for the remainder of class today / class tomorrow, it starts with flex. So you can keep working in the review. You can work on Delta Math. You can work on retake work. You can work on missing tests. If you don't have any of that to do, I have additional practice, but many of you have Delta Math. So everyone should be doing that at the bare minimum. Or review, or retake work, or missing tests. So come see me if you want to work on your tests / retake work. You can work on Delta Math or review